Hello, everyone. This is Livia Caudell, and you are here on the Conscious Wealth Builders Online Summit. And I have the privilege and honor to be interviewing Dan Clark. And we've just spent an amazing day chit-chatting, laughing it up. And you're just an extraordinary man who lives your purpose authentically. You walk the walk, you talk the talk, and you are just out there making a difference, and you're very successful at what you do. And by success, I mean you're just like, you're this embodiment of just love and generosity and really care about people. That's my experience of you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so
You're dead
welcome
on.
here.
You're right. I couldn't have said it better. Thank you.
And just totally hysterical. I don't think I've laughed so much. This entire day has been full of so much laughter, so thank you for that.
I appreciate it. I think laughter is the most significant thing we can do. You know, it triggers endorphins, and as irreverent as it sounds, when someone is ill, when someone's in the hospital, when someone's battling cancer, the best thing we can do is put a smile on their face, make them laugh. And I take a lot of pride in doing that. And I suppose that if we could ever project what would be said at our funeral, which is kind of a morbid thought, but I think it's a motivator, I would hope that people would say, Dan always made us laugh. You know, I think there's a talent and a need for that in our world, and I just love to laugh. I do. I love
You
when
have
people laugh.
perfected the art of laughter.
Thank you, man.
And you really do walk the walk. I got to tell you, when I first met you, you just walk into the room and you just light the entire room up with so much energy and so much love. And so who you really are is a conscious wealth builder. So can you just tell us about who you are, what you're up to in the world, and what your global vision is? Because I really get you do have a huge contribution to the world.
I think the only way we can inspire people and lead people is to be authentic. So they always know exactly who we are.
Yeah.
You know, it's been said, I would rather have a predictable enemy than an unpredictable friend. And if you're unpredictable, you can only be unpredictable once. In sales, the definition of sales is the transference of trust. And so as quickly as we can establish trust, the quicker we can exchange. No one wants to be sold, but everybody wants to buy from those whom we trust. I've been interviewed over 500 times, you know, Oprah, Glenn Beck, the whole deal, radio, television. And I cringe when I know I can't trust the person who's interviewing me. Why would we want to associate with anyone that we really, at the end of the day, do not trust? And so the responsibility falls on our shoulders, not on the other person. We attract what we believe we deserve in the law of attraction. We become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most, which means we must be willing to pay any price and travel any distance to associate with extraordinary human beings. But those extraordinary human beings, bottom line, are those whom we trust. So what we have to do in order to teach and inspire others to understand corporate consciousness, to buy into our purpose and our vision of what life needs to be, what corporate consciousness needs to be, what social entrepreneurship needs to be, begins with trust. And if you think about the definition or the difference between a manager and a leader, we've all heard this. A manager has followers. A manager has subordinates that they boss around because they are also being bossed around. But a leader has followers, and following is a voluntary activity. And I don't know if we can actually get any more simple than, if you want to know what kind of a leader you are, you figure out who's following you and where they're following you.
Yeah.
So what we really need, Livia, is we need individuals whom we trust as our gurus, whom we trust as our leaders because they are doing it. And they answer the question on a daily basis, can I do it too? With my weaknesses, with my limitations, with my strengths. And those who really lead in the 21st century, those who really make a difference, are those who understand what you're waving as your flagship, which everybody needs to buy into, which is going to be so easy to spread across the globe, and that is what you're calling corporate consciousness.
Yeah.
And maybe people are confused by that word consciousness, so let me turn the tables. What do you define consciousness to be? And let me throw my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So being conscious is to be aware, to be awake. And there's so many different levels to that, but really it's about coming from your heart and being authentic and being integrous, being your word, being someone who is out to make a difference. Because I truly feel that at the very core of all human beings, there is a driving force that calls us to make a difference. That's how we grow. That's how we expand. That's how we become more of the fullness of who we are as a human being. That's what it is to be conscious. And
that can only happen if you're present in the moment. Which means if something's funny, you should laugh. You know, you say,
or
I
if
walk into
something's
this,
not funny.
well, then maybe you need to hang around with somebody who sees the humor in
You
it.
need to hang out with Dan.
Yeah, I'd bend over to pull up my socks, and I think, what else can I accomplish while I'm way down here? That's not funny to me, but that's funny to everybody else. I go to bed healthy, I wake up injured, and all I did was lay there. That's not funny to me, but that's really funny to you. We have to be present in the moment. I wish you could see Brooks, the engineer, the camera guy. His hair has not moved since 1977. It's just perfect. The wind blows and it does not budge. I'm losing my hair right here. I'm growing it in places I don't even need it, and it's not a fair trade-off. My only hope is that the hair in my right ear will grow long enough I can comb it over the top of my head and fake out all of you viewers. The goal is to be present in the moment. If it's a tear-jerking moment, be there. Sometimes words get in the way. A mother encourages her daughter to come home as soon as school is over. The time comes, the time goes. 30 minutes later, daughter walks in through the front door and her mother scolds her. Where have you been? I've been worried sick. She says, oh, Mommy. I walked my friend Sally home. She dropped her doll on the sidewalk. I broke all to pieces. It was awful. Her mother said, so you're late because you stayed to help your friend pick up the pieces of the doll and put it back together again? She said, oh, no, Mommy, I don't know how to fix the doll. I just stayed to help her cry. That's what we're talking about. Just be present in the moment. Be you. But being you is not chasing the almighty dollar.
Yeah.
Being you is understanding the difference between success and significance. As we've talked about, my new book is called The Art of Significance, Achieving the Level Beyond Success. Successful people get what they want, but those of us who are striving to live lives of significance actually want what we get at the end of the day so we don't die with our music still in us. Young gal, famous singer-songwriter, written with all the biggest names in country music. So when she goes to Nashville, she's a celebrity. Everybody wants to write with her. And she's beautiful, she's sassy, she's talented, she's amazing. She has everything she needs to get what she wants. As a conservative friend, I pulled her aside one day because the lead singing bad boys of the band seemed to always be attracted to her. And the way hormones work, which I don't understand, she was also attracted to the lead singing bad boys of the band. Mutual respect and support. So I pulled her aside and I said, hey, you know, you got everything you need to get what you want, but at some point, don't you think you ought to take some time off and evaluate to make sure you want what you get at the end of the day so you don't die with your music still in you? It was like water off a duck's back. My counsel fell on deaf ears, and then one day I had an epiphany. I said, you're like a dog chasing cars. She said, what? I said, you're like a dog chasing cars. If the dog catches the car, what's she going to do with the car when she catches it? Just allow it to drag her down a road she hadn't intended and maybe leave her on the side of the road in a heap emotionally or physically or somehow dented or abused and divorced because her values didn't align with the man she was supposedly falling in love with? And how many of us are catching ourselves doing that after the fact? We only read a book on relationships when our relationships go south. We only seek financial advice when our finances are in trouble. At some point, we've got to understand that it's better to build a fence at the edge of the cliff than it is to park an ambulance at its base. So your consciousness, your program, your television, your aura, your summit, everything about you is prevention. It's if we start thinking like this, we won't fall off the cliff.
Yeah.
We won't be chasing cars we don't want.
Yeah.
We will clearly see what it is that we want, and what we want is not necessarily what we need.
Yes.
What we have to figure out a way to do is make sure we want what we're getting at the end of the day so we don't die with our music still in us. I've interviewed some of the most famous, the biggest names. I've dined with sheikhs and presidents, and so many wealthy people are sad.
So totally, aren't they?
They have 5 houses and no one to share them with.
Yeah.
They have their yacht, nobody's on it.
Yeah.
And there's got to be something that, there's a missing piece that is so obvious.
Yeah.
And that's doing the right thing at the right time with the right resources to make the world a better place. It's so cliche, but I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again. How simple is that to create?
So simple.
Through laughter, through joy, through a hug, through a smile, through a program, through a summit.
Through a summit. So this is so awesome. This is so fantastic. So I want you to share with the viewers how you really discovered your purpose and how they too can discover theirs. What would you say your purpose is and how can others find theirs?
I live in the mountains of Utah, and one winter we had this huge snowstorm that dumped 4 feet of snow in our neighborhood, and it forced the wild deer population out of the mountains into our neighborhoods in search of food. And there were deer everywhere, stranded in our parks and our cul-de-sacs. And the wildlife management associations came rumbling into our neighborhoods with these giant dump trucks, and they strategically dumped piles of hay to feed these starving deer. 1 week later, over 100 deer lie dead, leaning up against our curbs in our streets and our cul-de-sacs and our parks. The wildlife management associations came rumbling back in with their trucks, and they took these 100 dead deer carcasses away, and the veterinarians performed the autopsies. And you know what they discovered? Every single one of these 100 dead deer had stomachs full of hay. They had been fed, but they had not been nourished.
Oh, wow, yeah.
They got what they thought they wanted, but they didn't get what they needed. And when you have experiences like that, and my goal is to always figure out what the lesson is. My dad battled cancer for 6.5 years, and about 2 months before he died, he gathered all the family together and he said, "What are all of you learning from this?" I was paralyzed playing football for 14 months. 16 doctors told me I would never get any better. My eye drooped, I had lost the speech, couldn't talk anymore. My right side was paralyzed, my arm dangled helplessly at my side. As I recovered, I discovered something so profound. Pain is a signal to grow, not to suffer. Once you learn the lesson the pain teaches you, the pain goes away. So in life, there's no mistakes, only lessons. Crisis does not make or break the man or woman. It just reveals the true character within. If you're hanging around wondering if the glass is half empty or half full, you've missed the freaking point. It's refillable. Thinking positive or thinking negative doesn't fill up the glass. The pouring does. It's easier to act your way into positive thinking than it is to think your way into positive action. It's not the sugar that makes the tea sweet, it's the stirring, it's the process.
Yes.
So we've got to take action. And that's how you find your purpose. That's how you become a social entrepreneur. The entrepreneurial spirit is, I'm going to take a chance. It's a calculated risk based on risk reward. The ratio has to be in place. But if you know why you're starting this business, and it's to better mankind, better womankind, it's to better humanity, holy cow, you will always get back up and go again if the first time fails.
Right?
Failure's an event, not a person. If you're not failing a few times, it means you're not pushing yourself hard enough. We just got to keep rolling for the right reasons with the right people.
Oh my gosh, that's beautiful.
It's so simple.
It is so simple.
Really, everybody wants to make it so blooming complicated.
Yeah.
It's not. We have to understand we're all going to die. Deal with it. Deal with it. The old will, the young may. So we've got to figure out a way to make sure every single day matters. One of my best songs is tomorrow. I mean, the hook is in 2 more days, tomorrow's yesterday. You know, you just got to keep rolling for the right reasons with the giant vision.
Yes.
It's not that complicated.
Yes. And so I feel like we make it complicated, and going back to what you said, it's about being present.
Absolutely.
Being present in the moment, I feel, is worthy of just you're being purposeful. That's being purposeful, being
Absolutely.
present.
And what are the 3 segments of your summit? How have you dissected those?
Global vision. So
Okay.
like what's possible bringing higher consciousness to business. And then
Okay,
how
what's
do you,
possible based on the reality that we've talked about before, and that is we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. So we have to change who we are before we can catch a global vision. So my recommendation in your summit would be the first and foremost experience would be that man or woman in the mirror. And I have a great friend in Utah. He owns this magnificent company. He graduated in art. And it was his company that designed the Olympic medals and the Olympic torch in the 2002 Winter Olympics, and I served on the Olympic Committee.
wow.
So I was really part of that whole process. And what Brent Watts, the CEO of this company, what he will tell you is that when you have a vat of molten silver, because every vat is different, and silver in each of those vats will boil, will melt, will become molten at a different temperature in each one of those vats. It's that unpredictable and that unstable as a precious metal. The only way you know if that particular vat of molten silver is moldable and ready to be poured into some sort of a mold to make it something that it wasn't at the present time, the only way you know it's ready to go is if you can see a reflection in that vat of silver. It's the man in the mirror. It's the Michael Jackson song. It's the woman in the mirror. We've got to get ourselves right. It's the old story about the father coming home from work and he lays his work out and he's got an hour and a half before he can do anything, and his little boy runs in and says, Daddy, welcome home. Will you play ball with me? And his dad says, I'm sorry, I've got all this work to do, but I want you to know that I love you. And his son says, Daddy, I don't want you to love me. I want you to play ball with me. And we, as dads, have all felt guilty. So the dad looks around his study trying to scramble how he can get an hour and a half and then play ball with his son. And he sees the magazine on a table, and on the front cover of the magazine is a picture of the world, and he gets this brainy idea he can turn it into a puzzle. So he rips up the picture of the world into tiny pieces, puts it on a piece of cardboard, gives it to his young son and says, go put this puzzle together. When you're finished, come back and we'll go play ball. He swears he's got an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to work. And 10 minutes later, his little boy runs in, Daddy, I'm finished. And his dad scratches his head, how did you finish it so fast? He said, it was easy, Dad. On the back picture of the world was a picture of the man. When I got the man right, the world was right. Wow. It's such a classic story with such a profound message. We've got to make sure that we get it before we can start talking about a global vision. We've got to start talking about a personal vision. Why in the world are you on this earth? What are you about?
Yeah.
And you better appreciate yourself. You are smart, talented. You are supposed to be here, and you're supposed to be the way you are. And our fingerprints and our DNA are so unique they can convict us in a court of law. We've got to just first understand self-love. We've got to appreciate who we are, and then get into the global vision. And what's the second part, which is now the third part?
Well, it's finding your purpose.
Okay, so finding your purpose. They can't be mutually exclusive events. They have to be simultaneous. And so finding your purpose would be, in my mind, with all due respect to your planning, finding your purpose would be the starting point.
Yes.
Instead of the middle ground, it would be someplace where I can see why I should participate in a global vision. I can feel so much more comfortable participating with someone else because I know who I am, so I know that likes attract likes. And if I know who I am, then I will attract someone with my energy, my vibration, and my frequency, the law of resonance. We all know it's more than the law of attraction, it's the law of resonance. And once we understand how the energy flows and how the vibration flows in the universe, and we can create the frequency of that vibration and energy, which attracts likes to us, it's not mystical. We don't have to manifest any intention into the universe and use these mystical words. All we have to do is just be real, know who the heck we are, and suddenly we attract the same kind of individuals.
Yeah.
We're in Bangladesh, for heaven's sakes. I've never met you before. I've known Brooks a while. There's a few folks here I've never seen before. And for some reason, when we gather together in our meals so far in one day, we have conversations as if we've known each other for our whole entire lives.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not crazy, and it's not incredible. It's how it is.
Yeah.
And if somebody came to our table and they weren't at the same level of frequency of vibration, if they didn't understand our energy, they wouldn't relate and they would bail. And that's why we say we become the average of the 5 people we associate with the most. Well, yeah.
Yeah.
And in another interview, I pointed out when you put a hard-to-catch horse in the same field with an easy-to-catch horse, most of the time you end up with 2 hard-to-catch horses. You put a healthy child in the same room with a sick child, most of the time you end up with 2 sick children. So what we have to do is make sure that we're not that negative force. People need to leave us saying, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again.
Yeah.
What's the
I love
third or
that.
fourth or fifth or sixth part of your summit now that I've confused you?
I know, it's great. So it's discovering that purpose and really giving people access to that. And then how can they go and create a business, a conscious business that's in alignment with their truth and their purpose on this planet, such that they can provide for themselves, their families, be able to give back, and be able to live an amazing lifestyle that's worthy of their life.
Yeah. Okay, so I teach public speaking, and I teach my students a couple of profound things. One is an inverted triangle. Question number 1, why should I listen to you? It's the credibility piece. History, have you done it? Are you currently doing it? The second question is so critically important. Can I do it too, with my limitations, with my weaknesses, with my strengths? And that's the possibility. Credibility piece, possibility piece, and at the bottom of the inverted triangle is the system. It's how do I go from where I am to where I want to be?
Yeah.
It's the process, and it's the action step. It's the usability piece. And so when we stand up in front of anyone, when we present ourselves, when we create a curriculum for a summit, we have to answer those 3 questions in every single session. So what we have to do is teach each other how to find the niche in society and then fill the niche. And realize that someone will pay us for doing something that we love.
Yeah.
So we might as well do what we love.
Yes. Absolutely.
And that's the toughest thing, is to find out what we love to do.
Yeah.
I love to make people laugh. I love to write. I love to tell stories, and I'm fortunate enough to make a living as a professional speaker, as a songwriter, and as a New York Times bestselling author. I have lucked out.
That's amazing. And it's not like you planned that. I'm sure you didn't wake up one morning and say, hey, that's my plan and I'm going for it. It's going to, you felt this purpose within and you took actions consistent with that every day, being in the present moment, which has now led you to obviously where you're at.
And cut myself some, you got to accept your own humanness.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. One time I came home with a report card, had 4 F's and 1 D on it. My dad's response, son, looks to me like you're spending too much time on one subject. He got me. I wasn't the genius that my 2 brothers and sisters are.
Yeah.
I just am me. And some people like me, some people don't. And, you know, the folks who are so left brain cognitive psychobabbling and neurotechnical, they're missing out.
Yeah.
You need to engage both sides of the brain. And those who are always playful and always relational and always touchy-feely, you know, emotional, they're missing out too. We have to find that balance of fact and figure, and then realize that when we turn on the 10 o'clock news, we don't remember the facts and figures, we remember the interpretation of the facts and figures. We want to know, how does it relate to me? And that's the answer to your question. How do people leave your summit and apply what they've learned?
Yes.
They have to take action. Remember,
Yes.
it's easier to act your way into positive things than to think your way into positive action. We got to have a plan.
Yeah.
My dad used to always say, do you know enough to take action right now? Do you have enough skill set right now to do something? And the answer is always, yeah, I do. I don't have to wait. I don't have to get another degree. I don't have to take 3 more classes. I don't have to lose 27 pounds. I can do something right now. And that's what I always do, right now.
And do you just feel like there's an inspiration that comes to you and you're like your book, you have what, 26 books?
26 books, huh?
Holy cow. And so how does this inspiration just comes through you, and do you maybe attribute that to you because you know who you are and you know your purpose, and so things just, how would you explain how these things come to you?
I'm always looking for the lesson. You know, one of my stories was made into a film at Paramount Studios starring Jack Lemmon. It's won 22 film festivals so far. I'm really proud of that. I wrote the story when I was 13 years old. And it's relevant to your summit because I had a teacher who saw in me something that I didn't see in myself. And I was always the kid in the back of the class that could make everybody laugh. And she pulls me aside and she says, Danny, why don't you write a story, participate in the speech essay competition? I'm like, no. She goes, yeah, I really think you ought to do it. She goes, I want you to write an original story. I'm like, okay. So I'm looking around. I'm just trying to figure out the lesson. The story's pretty simple. It's an awesome little movie. Maybe we'll show it tomorrow. It's a short. I'll show the hook. A store owner was tacking a nail in a sign above his store door which read puppies for sale. Signs like that have a way of attracting small children, and sure enough, a little boy appears at the store owner's side. He says, how much are you going to sell the puppies for? The store owner assured the little boy that they were very, very good dogs and didn't expect to let any of them go for anything less than $35 to $50. To that, the little boy reaches in his pocket. He pulls out some change. He counts for a minute. He looks up at the store owner and he says, well, sir, I have $2.37. Can I look at the little puppies? The store owner smiles. He says, sure, son, and he whistles. Out of the kennel comes Lady, the mama dog, running down the aisle of the store, followed by 5 little teeny balls of fur, one puppy lagging considerably behind the others. Immediately, the little boy singles out the lagging, limping puppy. He says, what's wrong with that little dog? The store owner says, we took that dog to the veterinarian. He discovered it didn't have a hip socket. It would always limp. It would always be slow. To that, the little guy gets excited. He says, that's the little puppy I want to buy. The store owner says, nah, you don't want to buy that little dog. He's never going to be able to run and jump and play with you like the other little puppies. To that, the little guy gets ticked off. He says, I want to buy that little dog, and I'm going to pay full price. In fact, I'm going to give you $2.37 now and 50 cents a month until I haven't paid for. The store owner says, no, you don't want to buy that little dog. Why would you want to buy that little dog? And to that, the little boy reaches down, pulls up his pant leg to reveal a badly twisted left leg supported by a big steel splint, big brace going down each side of his leg. Little physically challenged kid looks up at the store owner and he says, well, sir, I don't really run so well myself, and a little puppy will need someone who understands. That's what it's about. Let's look for the lesson. I love short stories because that's the way I think. I see a whole story and I can consolidate it into a short story or a song, 3-minute and 40-second song, so every word pays its own way. It's not a talent, it's just a passion I have, and I love it.
Yeah, but you
And
just...
you know what, let me say something else for your viewers, because we've been talking about songwriting, we've been talking about music, and there's only 12 notes in music. Every song ever written was written with the same 12 notes. The only difference between one song and another song is the order in which the 12 notes fall and the timing and spacing in between the notes. So the question of the day is, what's the difference between a hit songwriter, a lousy songwriter, passion, creativity, and imagination? We already established that in a previous interview. But here's the motivation. Why we don't sell out, why we have to be present in the moment and authentically real to find our purpose, not the popular purpose, not what are people paying for from a speech topic.
Yeah.
Find our purpose. A songwriter's dream is to have a platinum selling record. A recording artist, I've recorded a lot of music back in the day. A recording artist, our goal, our dream is to have a platinum selling record, which means you sell 1 million copies. You know that with your musical background. The reality is this. I've written hundreds and hundreds of songs that are so pathetic, I wouldn't even share them with my own mother.
I can really...
But what keeps us writing songs is the reality.
Yeah.
That there are 300 million people in America, and you can literally tick off 299 million and still go platinum. You don't have to sell out for anybody. You just keep writing the songs that you want to write, and I keep writing the stories that I want to write, and keep trying to make that difference.
I love that.
And one of the things that troubles me, that keeps me humble and honest, is how many people post my stories on the internet without giving me credit.
Yeah.
And as a professional speaker, every once in a while I'll come off a stage and some guy will come up to me and go, man, that's not your story. I read that on, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what a tragedy. I have so many of my stories. I'm the primary contributor and author to all the Chicken Soup for the Soul book. So I have, so many of my stories that appeared in all the volumes, or many of the volumes. My stories are all over the internet, and my name's nowhere to be found as the credit. And so I had to grapple with that and realize what's my purpose? It's to make a difference, to get the message out into the universe, not to get personal glory for me.
Yeah.
And once I came to grips with that, which was tough,
Yeah.
because I would speak, and I remember going to Canada. 73% of my speeches are always return. I take a lot of pride in that. People know I have so many stories that are going to bring me back.
Yeah.
And, you know, when I speak 150 to 200 times a year, I take a lot of pride in rising to the occasion and customizing my message because I have so many stories from which to draw on, different songs I could perform or whatever. And I spoke 2 years in a row in Canada. I'll never forget it. I sat back down while I first spoke, and I told one of my stories, and there was no reaction. Then I told another one of my stories, which is a really funny story, and nobody laughed. And then I concluded my speech with one of my most famous songs called I'll Build You a Rainbow. It's a talking ballad. It's 6.5 minutes long. It's a story about a little boy and his mom dies. It's a tearjerker, but it has a happy ending. It's a way cool song, and it's my song, recorded on my very first album. I sang that song. I got absolutely no reaction. And I sat down, and I knew the meeting planner because she'd brought me in the year before, and I said, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
She goes, the speaker yesterday told those 2 stories and concluded his speech with your song.
Wow.
So I could be vindictive. I could find him. I could track him down and rip his lips off. I didn't do it. I was motivated to continually stay ahead of guys like that and keep writing new stories
That's beautiful.
and to keep writing new songs. And that's why I wrote a book about every 18 months, and I have 26 now.
It's incredible.
It's not because I'm noble. It's because it's the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And once you focus in on the right thing to do, everything else takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And you attract people who also want to do the right thing. And then the social consciousness, the social entrepreneurship, the corporate consciousness, they're all the same in my mind. You can't say corporate consciousness without saying family consciousness, because you can't leave your work at home and you can't leave your home at work.
Yeah.
It's one life.
Well, and that's what Conscious Wealth Builders is. It's a movement of living a conscious business life, because it's the totality, right? It's, yes, there's your business, but how you do one thing is how you do everything. Your business, your family, your relationships. Consciousness is a frequency, a vibration, and you carry that into all areas of your life. And that's what this is about. This is about creating a world that works inside of family, community, business, and having thriving businesses around the world. I really do believe will transform the world.
And as a leader, taking time where your employees are being paid for that day, and yet you show them the value of transforming their lives from successfully getting what they want to significantly wanting what they get by going as a group of employees, shutting down your enterprise and putting on your pink t-shirts to walk for breast cancer awareness.
Yeah.
Or for you to go volunteer at the food bank or the roadhouse or the soup kitchen, or whatever you can possibly do, so that the leadership is teaching through example that this is what matters most.
Yeah.
That we're not too busy hoarding our money and counting our shillings to serve others with the money that we've made.
Yeah.
I participate with the Children's Miracle Network, and I've known Marie Osmond for 1,000 years. And they've raised $5 billion for children's hospitals, and it's a pleasure for me to speak to all the corporate sponsors, and you've got Delta Airlines and Marriott Hotel, blah, blah, blah. Well, I just spoke twice in a row for an organization called Speedway in the mid-Atlantic states and in the East Coast. They're all over Florida as well. And they've raised over $6 million for children's hospitals. And you say your sister, you know, she works in a Quick Trip kind of a deal. It's a one-stop shop gas station / convenience store. We know the setup. Well, that's what Speedways are famous for, and they bought out Hess, so I think they're the largest convenience store in the country. Yeah. And their employees have raised $6 million for children's hospitals, and they just waved their flag like, yeah, our company is involved in such a noble cause.
Yeah.
And
So
the
it gets people
leadership
fired up.
shows their employees and allows the employees to come and participate in when
Yeah.
they give the check to Children's Miracle Network.
Yeah.
That's just such a simple example. And it's like you were talking to me about, you know, Whole Foods. You walk in the store and they're like, how can I help you? What are you doing?
Yeah.
That's what we all need to do.
Yes.
That's what this program's so significant. It
Yeah.
illuminates what matters most. And I can give you example after example after example that it only takes one moment in time to change our consciousness, and you're doing it every day. I love you.
Oh, love you too.
You're awesome.
Thank you. You know what could you just share, like, what do you think the breakdown is that's happening in the world? Why do you think that we still have starving children? We still have a lot of these global issues. I mean, it's 2016, right? And sometimes I'm like bewildered that this is still happening. And I really do believe it's through the power of entrepreneurship and innovation that we can transform these things. But what do you think the biggest breakdown is that we're facing as humanity? As
You know, if I could answer that in a different way, as I've raised millions of dollars for different organizations over the years, I take a lot of pride in doing that. It's really hard to get your people excited and passionate about raising money for an organization that is outside of your own community. And so when we raise money for the starving children in Ethiopia, that's a noble cause. But what about the starving people in Detroit? What about the starving people in LA? What about the starving people in Miami? What about the starving people in Salt Lake City, Utah?
yeah.
One of the boards I sit on is Operation Smile. We do the cleft lip, cleft palate surgeries all over the world.
Oh wow.
And we've got it down to a $240 surgery, 45-minute surgery for $240. You can change a kid's life forever, and their family, and their village where they live in the developing third world country, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
The reason why I use them as an example is because they're so visual. You can see the before and after on the side of a bus.
Yeah.
You can see the before and after in a photograph that you can show these teenagers in a high school who you're soliciting to help you raise money, $240 per kid, and you can change their life forever. But still, you're sending the money to Nicaragua. You're sending the mission to someplace else. One of the things that will work famously and immediately in social entrepreneurship and corporate consciousness is if we can identify a need in our community where we can actually see the before and after and get our people so engaged that they get immediate gratification. And everybody's slamming instant gratification. Oh, we need, instant gratification is so evil and it's bad. And we know it is, and we know why it is. We don't want to just sell out for that counterfeit happiness. We want enduring happiness.
Oh, wow.
And enduring happiness is created when we find our calling, and our calling is our greater purpose. It's not a job and it's not a career, it's a calling.
Yeah.
I have never missed a speech. I've never missed a speech since 1982. I've had planes cancel. I've rented cars. I drove 7 hours one time. I've never missed a speech. And people might say, wow, you're so noble. No, I know how down I was. I know that I hit rock bottom when I was paralyzed. And I wasn't just paralyzed physically, I was paralyzed emotionally.
Yeah.
And I was at the top of my game when that happened. The top of my game. There is one man and one woman in every single one of my audiences who is hurting as badly as I was. Guaranteed. And the pretty people, the beautiful people, have the ability to smile away their pain so no one in a million years would ever believe for a second, Livia, that you've ever had a broken heart, that you've ever even had a freaking pimple. You're this gorgeous China doll face, this perfect woman. And sometimes those are the people that hurt the most.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I guarantee that there's one man and one woman in every one of my audiences, and if I can say something that would keep them from killing themselves, you should see the emails I have. Keep them from getting divorced, you should see the emails I have. Keep them from just giving up on life because of a devastating loss of a loved one or the loss of a job. It makes that journey worth it because one soul has been saved because of something you said or the example that you shared.
Yeah.
When we can distill it down to individual difference, and I can feel like I'm making a difference, I guarantee people will catch on. And that's how we're going to spread this corporate consciousness across the globe. One person, one company, one organization in their community at a time. So we're here in Bangladesh. It's one of the poorest countries. We learned today that it's so significantly changing because of the vision of the leadership. So all of your elements of your summit are in place. But it still boils down to Bangladeshis, if that's what we call them, helping themselves. And if you remember what the Prime Minister's grandson's message was today, that they didn't go outside and hire in outside consultants or mercenaries. They had homegrown missionaries who bought into what they were trying to do, knowing that the answers are still in the box. They took their country, they took their individuals, and they bettered themselves. And in the process, look what's happening in turning Bangladesh into a digital society and a field full of intelligent, qualified people to enter into that digital world. It's exciting, and it is, and so do I. Again, we got to go local.
You know what? I love that. As you were sharing that, I saw what's the word momentum. I saw a greater amount of momentum. Like, I feel like even though we have a lot of nonprofit organizations and we're feeding people on the planet, there's still a huge gap. And I know that we've done a lot of good things in the world and there's progress, but I'm just like, man, what's going to make the difference? And when you said local, staying in your community, if everybody was doing that and seeing the progress, I feel it would exponentially grow and grow and grow and grow bigger just in that community alone, right? It's kind of like when the energy is clear over there, we don't get that momentum built. So that's what I saw. I saw momentum building rapidly when
Absolutely.
you were sharing that, which
and we have so many causes at home. We need to scratch where it itches. If your nose itches, you don't scratch your elbow. You got to go where it is.
I like that. Yeah.
And you know what? I mean, we're on that analogy. If your knee hurts and you don't get your knee repaired, pretty soon your back starts to hurt. And then most people go to a back doctor and he can't fix anything. You really have to go where the pain is, and you got to focus in on what's causing the pain.
The root.
Okay, so we have Black
root.
Lives Matter. We have a sense of racism that's escalating out of control right now in America. And the only way we're going to stop that is one community, one police officer, one gangbanger, one family, one neighborhood at a time. We've got to stop blaming and complaining and start fixing what's broken.
Yeah.
It's so easy. If we can deal with racism, we can deal with sexism, we can deal with anything if we just are willing to do it one person, belly to belly, heart to heart, trust on trust. We can do it. We really can. That's the mission. That's the mission. One person at a time.
I love that
And I
so
feel,
much.
I feel like when we stand on a stage as professional speakers, as cliche as it sounds, if we can touch someone's heart and someone's life, there is a ripple effect.
There really is, yeah.
And tomorrow I'm going to tell a story about an 18-year-old kid that just changed my life forever. If you think about it, if you connect the dots without flattering myself, I've spoken to over 6.5 million teenagers just between 83 and 89. Because I was in the Reagan White House doing Mrs. Reagan's Just Say No program. I've spoken thousands and thousands of high schools in all 50 states. I don't know if I ever transformed a kid's life. I don't know if I ever saved a kid's life, although I've got so many emails that say I did. The message did. But what I do know is that people left my session saying, I like me best when I'm with you, I want to see you again. And the reality is, I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not been paralyzed. If you connect the dots, I wouldn't have even met you today.
Yeah.
As your last resort to interview in Bangladesh because we're stuck in this hotel and there's nobody else to talk to. All the
Stop
chickens
it.
and the penguins are out at the pool. And you've already interviewed the 7 other, lonely hearts. You connect the dots, things happen for a reason, but it's our responsibility to determine what the reason is. And that'll be kind of fun after we leave Bangladesh to figure out what we do together and how I can help and how you can help me. And
Yeah.
when the water in the lake goes up, all the boats rise together. It's phenomenal what we can accomplish if we still believe that the universe has a master plan and we just got to figure out how we fit. We have to figure out where we fit in this big giant puzzle. And there, we got a weird shaped puzzle piece. Mine fits, yours fits.
Yeah.
And no two are alike. You know that.
So what is your final word you would like to leave people with? Or words?
I think most appropriately, I would want to lip sync 3 Britney Spears songs so you'll never be the same. Actually, I got a better idea. I want to conclude with a medley of 9 Gershwin tunes that I wrote. And could I have a G, please? I don't know how to answer that question. I'm like, what do you want on your gravestone? Oh, I'll be right back. I think that's funny. That's Johnny Carson's. I'll be right back. I don't know.
That's beautiful.
I don't know what to say to you. How about if you have me back again and I can talk, I can pontificate for another 30 minutes about absolutely nothing except what matters to you.
That's
I love you.
beautiful.
I honor you.
Thank you.
I really want to answer that. I don't want to just facetiously just say happy trails. I think maybe what I would say is I would leave you with my favorite quote that I've coined. May I do that?
Of course.
Under pressure, you don't step up your game. You succumb to the level of your preparation, training, and practice, which means pressure is not something that is naturally there. It's created when you question your own ability.
Ooh.
And when you know what you've been trained to do, there's never any question. Which means if you sweat more in peace, you will bleed less in war, with the guts to run towards the sound of the guns, not because it's expected by others, but because it's demanded of yourself. Which means exhaustion is acceptable, falling is acceptable, puking is acceptable, crawling is acceptable, blood, sweat, and tears are acceptable, disappointment, discouragement, sadness are acceptable, but whining, blaming, complaining, and quitting are not. So if you ever decide to give up on yourself and quit, you will always quit during practice, never in a game. That's why we train and practice so hard. You gotta believe that it's gonna be okay. And when being strong is the only...
So I'm good, okay.
And being, when you discover that being strong is sometimes the only choice you have,
Yeah.
you'll realize that courage is being scared to death, and yet you saddle up anyway. You just do it.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Because so often fear consumes me, and I just arise to the occasion, and that's all I can do. And doors are blowing open as a byproduct of that. So it really is just stepping into it, regardless of the fear.
Yeah. Doing one thing every day that you're afraid to do. Doing something hard every day. You know, the cliche from the movie League of Their Own, you know, the hard is what makes it great. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah.
It's the hard that makes it great, and I believe that. Like I said before, adversity introduces us to ourselves. No one will ever know how good we really can become until we're tested. And social entrepreneurship and corporate consciousness has to help us define what I call the difference between success and significance. When we identify ourselves in terms of what we do instead of who we are, we become a human doing instead of a human being.
Yes.
Unacceptable. Success and significance is what we seek. So I said yes to this interview because of who you are, not because of what you do. And I don't love you and honor you because of who you are. I love you and honor you because of who I am. You gotta begin with loving yourself before you can love someone else. You have to first like yourself before you can like someone else. You have to first trust yourself before you can trust someone else. And once you do, I like me best when I'm with you. I want to see you again.
I want to see you again
That's
too,
such a
Dan
good
Clark.
line. I'm so proud of that. It's part of one of my songs. You know, it's the bridge, but it just seems to capture everything that we're supposed to be about.
Yeah.
You know.
Thank you so much for
No,
your
thanks
time.
for having me back. No, thanks for you. You're making you're moving the world in the direction it needs to go. Remember, I mean, as crazy as this sounds, as we conclude our interview, we got to remember something. Jesus was not a Christian. Muhammad was not a Muslim. And Buddha was not a Buddhist. And the list goes on and on. It's who we become based on the new truth and the new enlightenment that we understand. So the goal is always to seek the higher ground, seek the new wisdom, seek the higher truth, seek the greater consciousness, whatever word you want. the goal. We're hardwired to make progress. We're always seeking the new way, the better way. The Olympics prove true that every single Olympic athlete believes that no matter what the current world records are, they can still be broken. And if we can take that cliche as a closing comment, you think about it. I can't get it any more plain than that we have got to continuously seek the new truth, the higher truth, and that's what your movement's about, that's what this program's about, and that's what makes you so special and cool.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and who you are as a contribution in the world, someone who's living their authentic truth and spreading that. Thank you.
Thanks, my pleasure.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Conscious Wealth Builders. We've got some amazing, extraordinary experts and speakers that are contributing to this movement, so please stay tuned to our next interview. Thanks for being you.
Thanks for letting me be me.
We'll see you soon.